everyone, we are the group 3 and today we will be going to discuss about the Fitts three-phase model and the signal detection theory. So first, we will be going to tackle about the 3 stages of motor learning. So did you know that Fitts and Posner's 3 stages model is one of the traditional cognitive theories of skill acquisition? Yes, because it is used to explain our behavioral changes that occur through our learning. Again, it is because it explains our cognitive and our behavioral changes that occur through our learning of motor skills. It is proposed that odd movements that we learn individuals. So gradually we progress through the 3 stages. First is the cognitive stage. Again, first is the cognitive stage. Second is the associative stage. Third is the autonomous stage. So Fitts and Posner stage theory of motor learning is conceptually similar to the other information process theories that proposed movement, and it becomes automatic. As individual progress through our learning continuum. So Fitts and Posner stage authorities process the beginners in the cognitive stage.
And today we are going to talk about cognitive stage. So according to Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development suggests that children move through 4 stages of mental development. His theory focuses not only on understanding how children acquire knowledge, but also on understanding the nature of intelligence. So there are 4 stages of cognitive development. The first stage is the sensory motor stage from birth to 2 years old. This is where the children learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening. The next stage of the cognitive development is the pre-operational stage. This is from ages 2 to 7 years old. This is the stage where children begin to think symbolically and learn to use words and pictures to represent. The next stage is the concrete operational stage. This is from ages 7 to 11 years old. During this stage, children begin to think logically about concrete events. So the last stage of cognitive development is the formal operational stage. This stage is from ages 12 years old and beyond. So in this stage, teenagers begin to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that required abstract reasoning. So again, there are 4 stages of cognitive development. First is the sensory motor stage. Second is the pre-operational stage. Third is the concrete operational stage and formal operational stage. So for better understanding about cognitive stage development, I will give you an example. So some of the first cognitive development develops during the sensory motor stage is depth, color, and motion. But it still remains debatable as to when these skills is fully developed and what specific experiences during the early life help to develop the visual perception of that certain person.
My topic is all about associative stage by Fitts and Posner's 3 stages of motor learning. Associative stage is characterized as much less verbal information, smaller gains in performance, conscious performance, adjustment making, awkward and disjointed movement. During this stage, the athlete works at making movement adjustments and stringing together small movement skills. This stage is also called the motor stage by Adams 1971. What is the associative stage in sport? It is the learning of the next phase of an athlete goes through when learning a new skill. This is known as practice phase, and athletes begin to learn what errors they are making and will continue to practice on how to serve in tennis. There are 7 important learning in sport in associative stage. Number 1, middle stage of learning. Number 2, Athletes will need have time to practice during this stage. Number 3. Athletes begin to learn what errors they are making. Number 4. Can be the longest stage. Number 5. Decrease reliance on working memory. Number 6. Movement becomes more fluent. And the last one is requires deliberate practice. What is an associative learner? Associative learner or learning principle that states that ideas and experiences reinforce each other and can be mentally linked to one another. This is the important lesson that we need to learn. Athletes will still need demonstration from their sports coaches. However, they will begin to relate to the demonstration you are showing and will use this image to help them practice. The associative stage of learning is the longest stage of learning before they begin to master the skill.
Example about the associative stage of learning. For example, the tennis player would begin to get cues from their environment, and this might include where their opponent is positioned and the height of the net on their desired ball target line. So these cues are used to create the desirable movement. Aspects of the ball toss and arm movement may be performed with less thought, but timing the sequence of these actions still requires attention and problem solving. As a result, performance is better than in the cognitive stages of learning, but the performer still creates or achieves greater levels of variability in shot outcome compared to an expert performer. This associate stage of learning can continue for different periods of time depending on the complexity or difficulties of the task and volume of practice. Some performers may never progress fast if they do not invest heavily or they do not invest an effort in skill development. Other elite performers in autonomous stage may revisit the cognitive and associative stages to relearn and refine their skills or to improve their skills to reach higher levels of performance in the future.
Today, I will be talking about autonomous stage, the third and the final stage of learning in Fitz and Posner's three-stage of model of learning. This stage is marked by the ability to perform skills more or less automatically with little, if any, conscious attention paid to the actual mechanics of the skill. It often requires years of training to arrive at the autonomous stage, but this stage is where it's at for elite athletes, where motor performance becomes largely automatic, where cognitive processing demands are minimal, and athletes are capable of attending to and processing other information such as the position of defensive players, game strategy, or the form or style of movement. Example in sports such as dance or synchronized swimming, it is the stage where they can now respond and not think, or think minimally, where they can grip it and rip it, look, and automatically react and enter a state of flow. This is where an athlete's skill improvement continues but less rapid and can pay attention to increasingly complex tactical and situational consideration, high levels of smoothness, efficiency, accuracy, and performed without stress. They are more or less conscious attention to their performance of the skills and becomes habitual. Autonomous stage is the highest level of proficiency, and not all learners will reach this stage. Attention reallocated to strategic decision making, consistent, confident, and make few errors, and can generally detect and correct those errors that do occur.
Now, I'm going to discuss with you the signal detection theory. So, signal detection theory basically looks to see how we make decisions. So, it is a decision making under conditions of uncertainty. So, decision making with uncertainty. So, now I'm going to give you an example to clear your mind about or of what signal detection theory trying to do. Okay, so I want you to look at your screen right now and tell me if there's any change. So it's pretty obvious that I put up this bright green circle. Okay, so now keep looking at your screen and think to yourself and try to notice any changes. Okay, as you observe, I put a fade green dot or a circle as compared to a bright green circle or dot. Now, the bright green dot or a circle is very strong signal, while the faded green dot or a circle is very weak signal. So, the signal detection theory basically trying to figure it out in what point is signal strong that we are able to notice it in the first place, and also in order to detect the signal. So we have this radar. So a radar, so it is a system for detecting the presence, the directions, the distance, and the speed of aircraft and other objects. So simplest word, it is the origin. Okay, so signal detection theory plays important role in psychology also. Example, imagine that we show a list of words to an individual and then we show another or a second list of words. And then we ask them or that individual to recall which word from the second list were on the first list. So now the decision that they have to make it is to decide which word on the second list is present and also present in the first list. And then the uncertainty is there to memorize all the words in the first list. So they're not sure, 100% sure, whether the words is exactly the same as the one. And also I can give you a real world situation of signal detection theory. Example, imagine that you're driving a work for school and you're waiting for a traffic light and it's a foggy day and you have to decide when to start driving because you have to decide when the lights turns green and then you start driving, and now it's really hard to see the green light, so it might be kind of a fade green dot or a circle, and you have to decide what point in time, how strong the signal in order for you to say yes and start driving. Okay, so as a conclusion, this signal detection theory will help you or will help us to decide what to choose for the better tomorrow and for the better result. Okay, so for the continuation, here's Salvania, Tabor, Anthony Francia.
There is a fourth choice, and it has four possible outcomes. I begin here with medical scenario. Imagine that a radiologist is examining a CT scan, looking for evidence of a tumor. Interpreting CT images is hard, and it takes a lot of training. Because the task is hard, there's always some uncertainty as to what is there or not. Either there is a tumor, or what we call the signal present, or there's not, which is the signal absent. Either the doctor sees a tumor, they respond yes, or does not, they respond no. There are four possible outcomes. First is the hit, or the tumor present and the doctor says yes. And second is the miss, or the tumor present and the doctor says no. And the third one is the false alarm, or the tumor absent and doctor says no. And the correct rejection or the tumor absent and the doctor says no. Hits and correct rejections are good. False alarm and misses are bad.
I have here example of signal detection theory. So, an example from everyday life illustrates this point. So, suppose a person is expecting an important visitor, someone that it would be unfortunate to miss. As time goes on, the person begins to hear the visitor and may open the door only to find that nobody is there. So, this person is detecting a stimulus or signal that is not there because it would be worse to miss the person than to check to see if the individual is there, only to find that the visitor has not yet arrived. So, in a typical sensory experiment that involves a large number of trials, an observer must try to detect a very faint sound or light that varies in intensity from clearly below normal detection levels to clearly above. So, the person responds positively or negatively. So, there are two possible responses, which is the yes and no. So, there are also two different possibilities for the stimulus, either present or absent. So, the accompanying table describes the combination of an observer's response and whether the stimulus is actually there. The table refers to a task with an auditory stimulus, but it could be modified to involve stimuli for any sense.
As we all know, SDT or signal detection theory has something to do in decision making. There are two choices. It's either yes or no. So I will give an example. Let's talk about email system. So whenever you're sending an email, the computer has to decide if is this a good email or is this spam. So two choices. It's either yes, it's good or no, it's not. And all in all, there's 4 different ways that this can play out. So either the email could actually be a good and we can decide that yes, it's good or not, no, it's bad. Or the email itself can be spam and we can decide yes, it's good or no, it's bad. And based on that, there's 4 possible outcomes. First is hit. You get a hit when you correctly identify something that you're supposed to have. You're supposed to say yes to, and that would be a proper email. Second is the misses. You miss something you should have said yes to. Third is the correct rejections. Properly said no to something that you should say no to. Lastly is the false alarms. You say yes to something that you should have said no to. So basically, when doing signal detection theory, that's kind of how it works in the very basic.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and stay safe.